Ladies and gentlemen, happy Sunday morning. Feels good. Getting a little colder outside makes me feel happy. I'm Scott Roussel, football scoop staff. Got Zach Barnett, John Bryce, Doug Samuels, college football experts, all of them. Okay, so we had a weekend of college football. FBS was meh. FCS was for real. Into the FCS regular season playoff action is coming tonight. Um, let's talk FBS first. I don't know why. It just feels like we should. Zach, did you watch the Ohio State game?
It was the most riveting game I've ever seen. I saw every snap. I think it changed the course of football history.
Moving right along. Okay, so top 10, so to speak. Ohio State handled business. A&M played Samford, excuse me. Georgia had Charlotte. Alabama had Eastern Illinois. Did not allow any yards.
Wait, that Georgia and Charlotte game, didn't Georgia beat Charlotte by about the same amount they beat the Longhorns by the week before? I'm just checking for casual.
There's some game context that you're missing, but
yeah,
they did score the same amount of points.
Okay, just checking.
The missing context is about $30 million in salary.
Damn. That one's going to leave a mark. Okay, so USC, Oregon, and Missouri, Oklahoma were the games that people were like, all right, let's see how this plays out, right? And USC, Oregon kind of played out kind of like we all thought it'd play out, right? I thought Dan Lanning's team just answered the bell and answered the bell and answered the bell. And they hung on when they needed to hang on, or they went and scored. Dante Moore did a very good job. He went and scored when they needed to score. Any other thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I thought USC looked really good early, but two crucial turnovers and a special team score. And USC doesn't have the depth for whatever reason to overcome that. And I thought that you saw a tougher Oregon team. For as tough as USC had looked earlier this year in a really convincing win against Michigan, USC got absolutely out-toughed in high-profile games against Oregon and Notre Dame.
Yeah, I don't think
Dante. Go ahead, Doug.
I don't think Dante Moore is getting enough. I'm not saying he's a Heisman type guy, but he is one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Like every week, you turn on a game and he's making throws that seem absolutely impossible. I can think of just two that come to mind in yesterday's game. Dan Lanning's teams play as close to SEC football as it gets. They're super physical. They don't give up big plays. I felt like USC is always, as long as Lincoln Riley is in charge, is always going to be great on offense. I felt like they fixed some of the defensive issues with Danton Lynn the past 2 years, but special teams, they continued to come up short yesterday, and that really hurt them big time.
Yeah, 150 yardage differential on the ground and a 14-15 two-touchdown difference was about, I think, what we all expected. This was the elimination game for USC and Oregon because people started looking at Oregon's resume today. It was like, yeah, it's a really good team, but where are the quality wins? They had that tough win at Iowa a couple weeks ago, but they lost at home to Indiana. The Penn State win, which I'd argue was a quality win at the time, has certainly lost value since then. So if your resume is you lost at home to Indiana, lost at home to USC, you're probably not making the playoff, despite the fact that this Oregon team can win a national championship if they make the playoff. And now they're in. And because I haven't had enough fan bases yell at me, when the bracket's set, I'm going to rank 1 through 12 in order of which teams are most likely to win the national championship. And I think Oregon will be in that top 4 teams that can actually go in and win this thing.
When Oregon runs the ball, more times than not, especially off tackle, the tackle, the tight end, maybe a lead block, they are making a wedge, and the running back is running 7 yards before he's touched. It's something to watch. And their gaps are big, and they create lanes. I think Oregon's a good football team. All right, with that said, Oklahoma, Missouri, I thought Drake might find a way. Thought Ahmad Hardy might do something more. No.
I literally tweeted. Go ahead, John.
Just real quick, I was just going to say they had opportunity to change the narrative in that game very early. Missouri was on the field a ton with its offense in the first quarter. then down 14-3, maybe with a goal to go situation, ends up having to kick a field goal. Another goal to go situation, ends up having to, I think, kick a field goal or got stuffed. I can't remember exactly what happened, but there were ample opportunities for that to be an entirely different game. And Missouri's defense holding Oklahoma at home to 17 after what the Sooners had done a week ago against Alabama, even though there's a defensive score mixed in there. Missouri's defense played well enough to win. Drinks, the offensive guy, and I know he's had quarterback issues, but the offense let down the defense for sure yesterday.
Well, I tweeted yesterday that it felt like Missouri's window to win the game, put the game away, had already passed, and then literally the next play they hit Satania for 87 yards to go up 7-3, and that was basically ball game. And it was a very strange game because it was 17-6 for what felt like the entire second half, and the margin might as well have been 70. Like Missouri could have had 80 drives and they wouldn't have scored a touchdown in Oklahoma. So you found an Oklahoma team that's definitely found its recipe to win games. And you see Mateer's thrown for 150 yards in their win over South Carolina, 159 in a win over Tennessee, 138 in a win over Alabama, and now 173 on sub 50% completions in the win over Missouri. And 87, half of those were on one play where he just had to throw to an open receiver and let the track star do the work. So Oklahoma was clearly the better team. They should have called this game in the mid-third quarter because it was just trading punt. And Oklahoma, it feels weird because the offense is not good, but they basically won this game 71-6 in terms of game context.
I would like to see the little game control data point or whatever. You're right, Zach. They had really complete control of this thing. But again, to Missouri's discredit, because the Tigers had opportunities, they actually outgained Oklahoma. They outpossessed Oklahoma, but they were trash on money downs. I think 3 for 16 total on money downs, and plus 2 turnovers to Oklahoma's 0. You got no chance of winning on the road against a quality SEC team like that with those metrics.
So real quickly, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. The final 14 possessions of this game were scoreless. Oklahoma kicked a field goal to open the game, the second half, to make it 17-6, and then they gave the ball back and forth 14 times after that, and no one scored.
So, Zach, when they consistently punt back and forth, at which point do you call the game?
Yeah, I'd say after 7 consecutive, the game's over at that point.
This is why Zach doesn't watch Big Ten games, clearly, because there's lots of punting.
I don't think Ohio State punts much.
Yeah.
He wouldn't know. Zach has no idea.
Yeah. And looking ahead, the brackets, it would have Notre Dame at Oklahoma to open based off last Tuesday. Notre Dame would win that game. Notre Dame would go to Oklahoma and win.
I would contend Oklahoma is one of the playoff teams with the biggest scars. Like they're going to win games with defense. Offense might do just enough to win games, but that is not a recipe you want against playoff teams.
All right. We were on Dan Lanning. I think Dan Lanning's a heck of a ball coach type of guy. I'd send my kid to play for that guy. Another guy I think is a really good football coach, but it's different. Is Fran Brown. Fran Brown, I think, is a really good football coach. He lost his quarterback, and the team has just died. JB, that Notre Dame start.
I've never,
How about that one?
At any level of ball, I've never seen anything like this in my entire life. Notre Dame led 21-0 and had not taken an offensive snap. Notre Dame led 21-0 and had not taken an offensive snap. By the time Notre Dame had its second offensive snap, Notre Dame led 28-0. So that tells you about all you need to know. They had a pick 6 to start the game scoring. They partially blocked a punt that went about 15 yards. Luke Talich caught it in the air, pirouetted, and raced down the left sideline into the end zone. And then another pick 6. And then their second play from scrimmage after a first down pass to Jordan Faison was Jeremiah Love busting through for 45 yards, the first of his 3 TDs. He rushed for $170 on 8 carries. Yeah, these are not fake stats. They're video game stats. They're Tecmo Bow stats.
Okay, so we just had a pirouetted usage on the Football Scoop podcast. That was notable. Speaking of fake stats. Alabama allowed something like 24 total yards in the game. It was Eastern Illinois. And to be honest, I did not watch this game. I'm not sure how much looking at the stats Eastern Illinois actually tried. I think they were trying to stay alive. Maybe I'm wrong, and I don't mean to disparage anything there.
For some reason, I've covered college football for 17 years now. For some reason, it just dawned on me this week that a lot of the SEC FCS Challenge Week, like Eastern Illinois, that's how their season ends. Like a lot of FCS teams, you play your season, and then you go to play an SEC team, and they're all right, guys, hand in your equipment, good season. Like I understand. I feel bad for those players and coaches that have to take this beating on behalf of their athletics department. I mean, you got to do what you got to do, but what a weird way to end your seasons.
Well, yeah, that's a great point, Zach, because you had Eastern Illinois doing that. You had Samford doing that, which is deep in a coaching search that John Grass is heavily involved in, among others. Then you had Furman doing that at Clemson, although I suppose Furman finished maybe 5-3 or so in the SoCon. But, yeah, just an incredibly odd type of season clincher for those teams, especially the ones that aren't in a position for the playoff. Mercer will go to the playoffs, but played at Auburn yesterday.
Yeah, so that's another one. If you're Mercer, how much do you even really want to try when you have your real goal waiting for you next week?
All right, let's talk about two legit good or fascinating ball games. So we got K-State, Utah, and we got Pitt, Georgia Tech. Let's start with K-State, Utah. Wild, wacky, K-State and then Utah. Unbelievable. Any thoughts, gentlemen?
Yeah, I couldn't believe that game. Utah has leaned on its defense all season long while bringing along Devin Dampier at the quarterback position. And through 3 quarters yesterday, just through 3 quarters, K-State had 500 yards of offense through the first 3 quarters at Utah. I mean, absolute insanity. And this game turns as Kansas State is going up what appears to be 48-35. This game turns on Utah getting a 2-point return to make it 48-37 or 47-37, and it just completely changed the complexity of the game, because then at that point in time, a field goal was back on the table for the Utes, and they ended up scoring a touchdown to make it 47-44, and they know that they get the ball near midfield with 2 minutes and a timeout left, and they're able. They didn't even need it all, and they go march down and score the game-winning touchdown. So I haven't looked at the win likelihood little meter, but for a long time it was heavily on the K-State side, and then out of nowhere Utah keeps alive its playoff aspirations and its scenarios to try and reach the Big 12 title game.
Yeah, I wonder how real Utah's they're ranked number 12, but can they actually climb higher than that? Because you look at their resume, they beat Cincinnati handily when Cincinnati was ranked. Cincinnati's not ranked anymore. They beat Arizona State with their backup quarterback, and then they lost to Tech and BYU. And I doubt this win improves their standing too much in the eyes of the committee. So if chaos reigns in these final 2 weeks or this final weekend, I bet you'd see Utah leapfrog before they'd steal an at-large bid, but we'll see. K-State, I know Chris Kleiman had some interesting comments after the game. My sister, who's never cared about football her entire life, called me this week. She married a K-State grad, and they've all become K-State fans. So she called me just to vent about Chris Kleiman, and he pissed off the fan base after talking about how hard it is to win, which is true. But he talked about how hard it is to win the week after a 14-6 win over Oklahoma State, and it hasn't been hard to beat Oklahoma State. So the K-State faithful is unhappy with Chris Kleiman, and in turn, Chris Kleiman is unhappy with the K-State faithful.
I would just say to your leapfrogging point real quickly, Zach, is I wouldn't be surprised to see Miami potentially leapfrog Utah this week into that number 12 spot, especially as Miami was ahead 27-17 with the game in hand and less than 2 minutes, calling timeouts to tack on a cosmetic brush stroke touchdown.
Yeah, I agree.
the comfort blanket for K-State fans is that this is like an out of character season for Chris Kleiman. Like the dude wins football games everywhere he's been, except for his, which I've mentioned this before, his one stint at Loras College. He was there for 1 year, won like 3 games or something. But they're 5-6 right now. Who do they got next week? I'm guessing
Colorado.
Yeah. Okay. So there's a chance to get to bowl eligible and kind of salvage the season. But I mean, it's just just one of those seasons that's completely out of character, I guess, for Chris Kleiman, that just wins games. So tell that family to be patient. I think he gets them back on track.
I think their frustration is you have a franchise quarterback in Avery Johnson that they're not maximizing, or he's not maximizing himself. And it's just K-State used to annually contend for Big 12 championships. They wouldn't always win it, but they'd be in that mix, and they've fallen out of that mix in these past few years.
But that's the quarter. Having a returning quarterback that you expect a lot of has been the story across the country. I mean, South Carolina, same thing. LSU, same thing. Like those returning quarterbacks, it seems like underachieved. I don't want to say almost across the board, but in a lot more cases that come to mind than don't. So I'm with you. I agree.
They have 5 losses by a combined 17 points. That's crazy town. Like the law of averages says you'll go 2-3 or 3-2 in those, not 0-5.
Yeah. If that was Kyle Whittingham's last game at Rice Eccles, he's going to remember that one for a long time. He's going to talk about that when he hangs it up, in my opinion. All right. Pitt, Georgia Tech at home. Georgia Tech just needed to win, baby.
Yeah, Tech looks tired. The way they looked against NC State, they play such a rugged style of football, an admirably physical style of football, but you wonder how much this season and that style of play has finally just had an accumulative effect on them. And I just thought that was not a fluke. I mean, Pitt was up 28-0. Pitt woodshedded them. And then Pitt made all the plays to put the game away late, had the pick 6 for 100 yards. Pitt got it done on both sides of the ball and really effectively ended Georgia Tech's season in that moment, because even if the Jackets beat Georgia next week in that game that they gave away, that home game that they're getting $10 million to play in Mercedes Stadium, even if they win that game, they're going to be 10-2 and left completely out of the playoffs, because their 2 losses, they were pretty non-competitive overall in those losses to NC State and Pitt.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting conversation, because obviously Britt Key's won a lot of respect for how he's built Georgia Tech and interest for this job or that job. But I wonder how well this style of football scales. And the conversation of we being a tough team and a physical team and all that stuff, no one's ever going to stand at a podium and say, we want to have a finesse football team and we're going to out-finesse and outrun people. But when you say we're going to be the most physical football team in college football, yada, 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 the other team, it's difficult to play against you, but the other team's got to get in 1 fist fight. You got to get in 12 fist fights every single year. And so on any given Saturday, yeah, but I'd rather be the more physical team. But over the course of the season, we saw what we saw. And I was fascinated by this game, because at 28-0, it didn't feel like Georgia Tech was out of it. And then they were driving to potentially make it 28-21. And then you have a 100-yard pick 6. Yep. And then it was they were down 14, and it's like 7 minutes left. It's like, all right, the math says you need after the 4th and 9, Pitt was about to punt, and the math says Georgia Tech is going to need like a 70-yard touchdown pass. And instead, Pitt's like, no, we're going to fake a punt on 4th and 9. And gave Tech the ball with a short field, which they cashed in. And then Blake Gideon was just throwing haymakers, just trying to land something, because he knew his team wouldn't force Pitt off the field on a down-to-down basis. And then brought the house from the outside. Pitt ran right up the middle, untouched ball game.
Yeah,
but it felt like it felt like it was a gamble Blake Gideon had to make at that point.
I agree. Yep.
It was 4th and 9. You're the team in overall control of the game. 4th and 9, not 4th and 1, and you call that fake. But that was a Nardum call right there. So they survived it. And now Brent Key, I think Brent Key would be a great fit at a place like an Auburn or a Penn State, especially a Penn State, but I expect him to be signing his contract extension in the very near future. My understanding is he's worked out some NIL and rev share stipulations with the administration there at Georgia Tech. So I believe Brent Key, I know the talk has been out there, but I think him signing it, he's told people he's going to sign it. He'll be signing it in the coming days.
Yeah, I think, administration always wants to sign that after a good win.
Yeah.
You got this, you got Georgia. I'm going to give props to Vegas, and then I want to go quickly through some other games. Vegas, they just don't miss. So we started the season before the season, we did like, hey, which teams do you think are going to overachieve expectations and underachieve expectations? I had Nebraska underachieving 7.5. They're currently sitting at 7, and they got Iowa. Now, when I walked through them, I actually said they'd be at 7 and they'd have Iowa left and they'd lose. So I had them under 7.5, but I'm just impressed with how good they are at that. On the flip side, Brett Bielema's team, Illinois, I had winning over 7.5. Well, they're currently sitting at 7. They lost to Wisconsin. Son. They're sitting at 7. They got Northwestern left. And Northwestern is not a laydown. So Brett's team's got to step up. But regardless, Vegas is so good. It's unbelievable. All right.
Typically very good, but to that point, they had San Diego State at 4.5, and San Diego State doubled that yesterday with its 9th win of the season.
So if you listen to JB, you made money, baby. All right. That's why you come to the Football Scoop podcast. Listen to that, and then hear Zach talk about how pedestrian. Anyway, moving right along. Okay. Quick thoughts. Louisville slide. Jeff Brom was up for some significant jobs.
Yeah.
Let's also talk about SMU. I mean, you have a team that won your conference last year, or 2023, was the favorite going into the ACC championship game last year, was 8-0. And this year's team is not as good as last year's team, but they're right in that mix to return to the ACC championship game.
Yeah.
And playing really good football. I mean, that game yesterday was non-competitive for Louisville, and I think Louisville also is beaten up and kind of emptied the tank to get in position to be in that ACC championship game conversation, that playoff conversation. And now the fade has commenced, and that's another one where they're not as close on a contract extension, but it's in discussions. I'm very curious though to see the nature of those conversations and exactly how much give there is on the Louisville admin side as the Cardinals struggle on the field with what looks like a really potentially very prolonged losing streak to the season. Kentucky playing overall much better football despite being blown out yesterday by the fighting Diego Pavias.
And when your quarterback comes out and talks about how bad your culture is,
not a great sign.
Louisville, that's not a great sign. All right, flip side, Jake Dickert is a ball coach. I don't know that anybody expected him to come from Wazoo, go to Wake Forest, have no players, like piecemealing a coaching staff together, and come out here and just Donkey Kong people. I mean, I don't want to say like this was just Delaware. Delaware's a good football team, and they hung $1 billion on them, and they're 8-3. Good job, Jake Dickert. That's all I got.
And someone's going to not make the ACC championship game because of Wake Forest. I mean, they have wins over. They're the lone ACC loss to SMU and Virginia.
James Madison goes 10-1. Their only loss was at Louisville early in the season. Bob Chesney, pretty good ball coach.
I believe is the only team that has officially punched their title into the conference championship game, because there's madness that could happen everywhere else around the country in college football.
It's a great number.
Things that we didn't really necessarily expect going into the season. Arizona, man, just beating the tar. I mean, whipping shed with Baylor. Arizona's 8-3. Good job. Ricky Ronnie, 8 wins at Old Dominion. My man just keeps getting a little bit better every year. Good job, man.
And he absolutely cranked the heat up on Clay Helton. A lot of disappointed folks in Statesboro, and that was, again, a non-competitive loss.
How about Kennesaw State? 8 wins. fellas, that team was dreadful last year.
Return of the Mac, Jerry Mac, baby.
Mac.
Scott, I feel like you called the Auburn Mercer game as Auburn may want to watch out. That one didn't pan out that well.
Yeah, it started off a little tight
14
on the
first
Plains,
quarter, yeah.
but then it's just talent.
Where was Deuce Knight all year? Like,
seriously,
what might be
Sitting on
different
the
about
bench.
Auburn's season? I know that was SEC versus FCS, but Mike Jacobs is a heck of a ball coach. Mercer is a really high quality FCS team, and Deuce Knight, again, second Tecmo Bowl reference, because that's what he looked like yesterday.
Wyoming lost to Nevada. Wyoming's had a bad season.
Yeah, they have no offense. The Cowboys' offense is. I don't know if you put the Wyoming offense and the Syracuse offense on the field if either one could score against air. Like, they're terrible.
I'm just going down the list, and I get to the UAB game, and I just have a terrible feeling about that whole situation. So, John, give me this. This happens yesterday morning at the breakfast.
This is awful. This is literally team breakfast in the football facility, and some guys had beef carry over from the day before, and Gerald Mincy, it's been reported, has now been arrested and charged with attempted murder. Literally, I talked to people that were there. He literally tried to kill his teammate. He plunged his knife into his abdomen, according to witnesses that I spoke with. And then another teammate was injured when he jumped in trying to rescue his teammate and had his hand sliced open before they could finally subdue him. But again, this was in the team breakfast line. I've never heard of anything so heinous. I've talked to people down there, and they're like, John, I promise you, this is not our culture. We haven't had issues like that. The one thing that Trent Dilfer and this staff did well was they cleaned up our culture, but it just takes one. I hate to use the old cliche. It takes one rotten apple to poison the barrel, and that's the perception today. And the players are both the injured players are both recovering extremely well, according to UAB people that I spoke with, and so there's great encouragement that a tragic situation didn't become a deadly tragedy.
I mean, there's no right answer here, but that happens, and then you're like, all right, we gotta get ready to go play.
Well, now to UAB officials, yeah, you're right. You're right. Thankfully, UAB officials intervened and gave any player who wanted to sit the game out the option to sit the game out, and I think they voted on that. And some players did sit the game out. They also got together emergency counseling services to have available for the players, and so. I think UAB officials tried to step in and handle an unprecedented situation as deftly as they could.
Still, man.
Could not imagine.
And hopefully, I mean, none of us know, but hopefully that's just this one dude. It's not like, it was a D line versus O line, kind of what I had heard. Like, hopefully it's not, I don't know, man. Gosh. Ugh. All right. Sorry, but we got to talk a little bit more football. FIU, oh man, can coach ball. He beats Jacksonville State 6-5 now at FIU. Good job. Major Applewhite needed a win, and they got one. They at home they needed to beat Southern Miss, and they did. So give them some credit there. Southern Miss had a heck of a season, 7-4, but South got that one. Gentlemen, Penn State handled Nebraska pretty easily. I mean, when I say pretty easily, like pretty darn easily.
Yeah, you want to talk about culture issues. There are a whole lot of whispers about what Dylan Raiola is going to do with his future there in Lincoln. His brother decommitted this week. Yeah, there's issues beyond getting spanked by a Penn State team with an interim coach.
I don't. I just happened to catch Matt Rule jogging off at halftime. It was just like indifferent. It just looked wrong. I don't know. Stanford, pretty much woodshedded Cal. A little surprising. And Cal started off in a good place and just hasn't gotten better.
Well, they ignited this Louisville slide. They ignited the late season Louisville swoon with a 29-26 overtime victory. But then there's just, again, no consistency in that Cal program right now. Good enough to win a game like that against a Louisville, and then bad enough to get absolutely blown out in their biggest rivalry game of the year.
Yeah.
I heard Marcus Mariota say the quarterback's name at Cal. I'm not going to attempt to try to say it, but when you're
let JB, he loves to.
JB, go ahead.
I have to see it. I can say it, but I have to see it.
Can
I
try?
put him on the spot.
Yeah, that's it.
Sagapulatele. When you're expecting a freshman quarterback to throw the ball 50 times in a game, and I know that stat can be a little bit inflated because they were down so much, but you can't expect that much out of a young quarterback on that stage in a league game and be able to – you got to help them out being able to run the ball, and they ran the ball for a whopping total of 12 yards. So if you don't have a run game and you put all that weight on your freshman quarterback, that is not a great recipe for success.
Jaron Sagapulatele.
Well done. I watched a little bit of LSU, Western Kentucky. LSU's offense was stunningly atrocious, ineffective. It made no sense. Western Kentucky wins that game if they don't have a couple of silly turnovers, some bad they drive the ball all the way down the field, and then they try two trick plays within the 5. It's just a bizarre football game. I happen to check the stats. ESPN says LSU's quarterback, the QBR was 12. I don't know if I've ever seen 12 before.
So you're saying this LSU team is not prepared to go to Norman, Oklahoma on Saturday and win?
I would agree with that statement. They will not win. LSU's defense. Now, I just playing West Kentucky. West Kentucky has pretty talented offense. LSU's defense was dirty. Blake Baker was bringing stuff. This QB had no idea where it was coming from. Western Kentucky might not have had a rushing yard. I'm kidding, but not really. That might have been 20 rushing yards. But Blake Baker was bringing guys from the sides, and the quarterback was looking the other way and just was getting wrecked. LSU did fumble the ball with 1 minute left. Western returns it, and Western almost wins the game. It was in front of 17,000 fans at the end. Whatever.
Scott is a longtime LSU fan. Is this the worst LSU's offense has ever looked since you've been watching?
No. LSU has had some abysmal.
Okay.
Abysmal. No, LSU has some playmakers, dude. Some real playmakers. And they got LSU's problem forever has been their offensive line. They just can't. They can't create push. They can't. Oregon runs a tunnel and they run 8 yards until the guy gets touched by a safety. LSU is in the backfield or within the line of scrimmage every time, first contact. Boy, you want to talk about some bad offenses LSU has had? We could have a whole podcast on that. Jeez, buddy. Washington went to UCLA and just beat the dog out of them. Up and down season there. Yeah, I skipped over. I didn't mean to. New Mexico, Air Force not having a great season, but New Mexico picks up win number 8. Dog. I like it. San Diego State goes to win number 9. JB told us early on. He said put the house on San Diego State's over. He was right by a lot. Good job, young man. All right, JB, Brawl of the Wild. Give it to me.
Brawl of the Wild. What a spectacular game. Really back and forth. It was 14-7 or 17-10, and then they traded leads, and then finally Montana State gets a late score, holds the homestanding Grizz, and then is able to grind out the clock. Montana just couldn't get a final third down stop to force a Montana State punt and then have any chance at kicking a field goal to force overtime or even driving down like we saw Utah do and winning a game that it trailed for most of the game. But an unbelievable win for Montana State, giving everything that was on the line in that contest. They should now get the much better playoff seed, which those, I believe, come out this afternoon for the FCS world. And then it's also big picture after that rivalry had been fairly even and at times dominated by Montana. Montana State has now gone 7-2 in the last 9 Brawls of the Wild. So that's big time getting it done against the most important team on your calendar in a year in, year out basis. And that's just it had huge ramifications for the FCS playoffs.
Amen. Great stuff. Gentlemen, any other closing thoughts?
Real quickly, I want to say, and we've talked about it before, but Bobby Wilder, Tennessee Tech, they squeak out a 20-17 win against Jason Simpson and UT Martin yesterday. It keeps Tennessee Tech undefeated against FCS competition this year. They're 11-1. Their one loss at Kentucky last weekend in a money game that they had to play, like Zach noted, late in the season at that, and they've got playoffs at hand. But the win yesterday let them clinch outright the conference championship. They had clinched at least a share of it, but yesterday's win against Jason Simpson's crew that had only had one conference loss entering the game gives Tennessee Tech that win outright. Tarleton State, heck of a win in overtime against Austin Peay. And then South Dakota State, which lost its quarterback a few weeks ago and had suffered some truly stunning losses, including, I think, to Indiana State. Was down 14-0 yesterday against North Dakota in another rivalry game and down 17-7 in the second half. Finds a way to win that contest in overtime, finishes 8-4, certainly sent a key statement to the FCS playoff selection process.
2 more FCS games I'd like to note. We had the rivalry yesterday, Lehigh and Lafayette, the 161st time those two teams have played each other. Lehigh came into that game undefeated, but Lafayette could steal the Patriot League title with a win, but Lehigh got it done 42-32. And then for the first time ever, the Ivy League will play in the FCS tournament. Harvard came into that game undefeated, but Yale could steal a bid either from Harvard or someone else if they won. And Harvard's been a great team over these last 4 years, but Yale has their number, and they won 45-28. So Yale is in the FCS playoffs, and we'll find out later today if Harvard joins them.
Two FBS games for me. UConn improves to 9-3 on the year. Jim Mora consistently. I don't want to say consistently. I think last year was a down year, but they've won a lot more football games there at UConn than I think they've expected to in a long time. A large part of that is an independent schedule, but they do have wins against teams. Duke just a couple of weeks ago was a really good win for him, and I bet Fran Brown feels really silly doing. I think that was the sprint game where he kept the team out to do sprints, and then just to get Donkey Konged by Notre Dame by 63. That's got to feel a little bit silly looking back. And then Michigan State dropped to 0-8 in Big Ten play. They've got a matchup this Saturday against Maryland in the matchup of bottom Big Ten teams. That was supposed to be the Michigan high school state finals on Saturday. The Big Ten and Michigan State decided to kick the little guys out of that slot, push the state finals games to Friday and Sunday so that they could get their game in. And it's a game that very few people are going to be showing up to. I know my brother got a pair of tickets for like $20-25. So they're really stooping low to try to fill that one. And they've really perturbed the entire Michigan high school football community with that move. So didn't make a lot.
Doesn't that just sum up the Big Ten right there? Like we've got to step on the little guy to maximize dollars so the nation can watch this 0-8 Michigan State team play.
Hopefully there's better crowds at both sessions of the state championship. Those young men deserve it. And also, I think I saw a contest that was like, first place, you got 2 free tickets to that Maryland-Michigan State game. Second place, you got 4.
Good, JB. Steve Englehart. So we've talked about Presbyterian FCS non-scholarship football team. Steve Englehart goes in there. They're 1-10 before he gets there. They're now 10-2 this season. Holy smokes! What a great turnaround. That's awesome.
Hey, drop a bit of D3 knowledge. Steve Englehart was the head coach at Rose-Hulman University when we played against him in college when I was at Defiant. So more D3 wisdom for you guys.
Love it.
People, once again, if you're here in minute 39 of this text me. Let me know you're watching this because this is amazing content. We sometimes have to save the best for last. With that said, let's go. So FCS playoffs are coming out. FCS regular season is now over. It's a time of change. It happens. I think there's actually a fair amount of FCS change coming this week on footballscoop.com. We'll cover it all. Happy Thanksgiving week to everybody. We'll be here Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. We'll have a couple of extra things for you guys this week. It'll be a busy week on footballscoop.com. Keep eyes on us. We appreciate it.